Hey everyone, so today I want to cover all of the recalls, TSBs, as well as one important SSM or special service message that I could find listed online for the S550 GT500. Now this list will include other Ford models as well as some other Mustangs, but every one of these items involves the new S550 GT500 in some way. Now this video is intended for someone that either owns one of these cars and maybe you're experiencing an issue and you're not sure if Ford has officially acknowledged this as an issue yet, or maybe you're looking to purchase one of these cars and you want to know what kind of problems this car may have experienced that Ford is officially acknowledging. Now, I had to put together a pretty big cheat sheet for this. There's 19 items on here. Fortunately, most of these items are very small and insignificant. A lot of these issues and problems are addressed by simple computer reflashes of either the PCM or the TCM. So don't be worried, there's not really too many big issues on here. There's one or two items on here that I would consider significant and should be addressed immediately, but for the most part, this is all small stuff that your dealer's gonna be able to fix in less than an hour. So before I get into the actual list itself, let's cover some logistics. The only thing that you as an owner of one of these cars will be notified about is a recall. Recalls are federally mandated by the government that they have to reach out to you and notify you because they involve some sort of safety issue. So TSBs and SSMs, Ford is not going to notify you. The only way you're really going to find out about them is if you're hunting online, maybe you're having a problem, you're searching online for a known issue, or if you go down to the dealer, they can search the Ford system and see if maybe the conditions that you're describing involve one of the TSBs that's already been addressed for this car. Also, it's not uncommon to have several numbers listed for the same TSB or recall. Typically, they will supersede the numbers if some sort of change is made. So if a recall or TSB comes out and then after that one is officially produced, maybe the procedure has to change or more vehicles are added to it, they will supersede the original number with the new number. So if you're searching and you're finding, wait, this has like two or three different numbers listed, why is that? They probably superseded them. You often see in the latest ones, it'll say, typically at the top, it'll say, this number supersedes this old number. So that's pretty common with that. Now, if anyone has ever seen the YouTube channel Shelby Flyer, that's Tim. He has a 2020 GT500. He has actually had a bunch of these issues, and he has actually gone into a lot of good detail covering some of these in really good depth. He's actually recorded at the dealer some of these procedures of how to address some of these. So in the some of the items I have here listed, I'll link his video below. So if you have to go in for one of these recalls or TSBs, you can see the actual full detailed description of it being addressed at the dealer on his video. So he did a really good job on that. I'll link that in the description below as well as with all of these actual numbers. So let's go ahead and jump right in. We're going to start off with the recalls first, the things that you will get notified as an owner for. There are 5 of them. I have these listed in basically numerical order of when they came out. So the first one, the camera calibration recall. Recall number 20S26. This affected 2020 GT500s only. It's only affected a 2-day build window, February 10th and 11th. So I believe that only affects the cars that are tech package cars. And basically, I think the issue is that the cross-traffic alert might not work correctly. That is fixed with a simple reflash of the computer, less than an hour at the dealer. Not a big deal, simple thing. Up next, the brake pedal bracket recall. Recall number 20S52. That affected 2020 GT500s only, build dates of March 4th to August 13th. So essentially that issue is the brake pedal itself is made of metal and the arm is made out of metal, but the bracket that mounts to the firewall is plastic. So if you're stabbing the brake pedal really hard, like you're racing the car, there's a potential you could crack that plastic bracket. So that's a safety issue. So they had to make a notification of a recall with that. That's about a 1-hour job. Tim from Shelby Flyer covered that video in depth, really good video. Check it out if you have to have that done. But definitely get that done because that is a safety issue. Up next, this is probably the biggest one, the biggest issue with all the recalls for the S550 GT500, the cam tensioner recall. That is recall number 21B26. That affected 2020 GT500. It affected almost the entire build year for that. That's December 2nd, 2019 to December 16th of 2020. So almost the entire build year for 2020. I actually did a video on that because that affected the GT350s as well. That is a big one. Essentially what happened was when the engines are being built in the engine assembly plant at Ford, the secondary cam chain has to go onto the drive sprockets that connect the intake and exhaust cams. When that chain goes on, they have to basically line up all the timing marks, put it on, and there's a tensioner there that holds that chain tight. Now the tensioner is not deployed. It's in a basically a short position so they can put it on, line it up easily. And once everything is lined up, all time marks, they push in that tensioner and then it deploys and it keeps everything tight. There was a flawed production from Ford where they were not being deployed. And because there's no tension on the chain, the possibility existed that the chain could jump time and blow the engine. That was a big issue. That has to be addressed. Like I said, I'll link my video above that addressed that issue, how to basically inspect that. It's a pretty simple inspection, but that is not something that you wait for. They even recommend you tow the car to the dealer because if it jumps time and blows the engine, it's a huge issue and the engine has to be replaced. So, like I said, check out my video that goes into depth with that. That's one you don't mess around with. That is a really big deal. Up next is the TCM transmission control module P/PCM power control module reflash. That is recall number 22E08. That affected 2020 and 2021 GT500s. The build dates for that for 2020 are February 28th, 2019 to December 16th, 2020. And for 2021 GT500s, that was October 20th of 2020 to December 7th of 2021. So you're basically talking almost every 2021 and 2020 GT500 is affected by that. So basically, the issue with that is the TCM can't self-clear any sort of codes that come up in it. So basically, that's just a reflash, not a big deal. That's an hour at the dealer. They do the reflash, you're done, ready to go. Shelby Flyer did a video on that, recording it at the dealer. So if you want to check that out, check out his video. I will link it below so you can see exactly what needs to be done, but not a big deal. And then finally, this is a really small one, the airbag bracket weld recall. Recall number 22S07. I don't have build dates for that, but that affected 2021 and 2022 Mustangs, and the GT500 were included in that. That only affected a total of 327 cars, so a super small recall. Essentially what the issue was is the bracket that mounts the airbag on the passenger side, the knee bag. The welds had an issue, and if that bag has to deploy in an accident, the weld might fail when the bag deploys because of the force of the airbag, and it might not deploy at the proper designated and designed angle that it's supposed to go out at. So you can check that out, but like I said, it only affects 327 cars, so that's a tiny, tiny window of vehicles that affect it. So now we'll get into the TSBs, the stuff you're not going to get notified for. Up first is the transmission cooler leak. TSB number 212148, 2020 and 2021 GT500s that affected, no specific build date. Essentially what happens at the factory, the lines were not properly secured and or they possibly were cracked, the lines where they go into the transmission itself. So essentially what they're doing is they're replacing the hoses and the seals for the transmission. It's about a 2-hour job. On the 2022s, the actual clips that hold the lines in, they're painted blue. On the ones that were affected with the recall, they were basically a silver color. I'll show a picture of that. I got that in a video for the video I did for my underbody inspection on this car. So they're basically blue. So basically, if you have a 2020, 2021, definitely get that taken care of. You don't want your transmission cooler lines leaking. Up next, the hood inner panel crack TSB. TSB number 212155. 2020 and 2021 GT500, no specific build date. Essentially, this is a cosmetic issue. Some of the support underneath the hood could start to crack. Basically, this is kind of not, I don't think the best way to deal with it, but Ford is basically putting like a body filler in it and sanding it down because it's a cosmetic issue to do it. Is that the best way to address it? That's kind of up to you, but they say it's a cosmetic issue, it's not structural, so that's how they're addressing it. The headliner sag, this affected pretty much all the S550 Mustangs. This is TSB number 21-2220. This affected 2020 and 2021 GT500s. Essentially, the headliner is starting to sag where the plastic trim goes up around the door frame. So that's a pretty simple thing. They're basically replacing the plastic moldings around the frames. That's about a 1-hour job. So Another pretty simple thing that your dealer should be able to easily accomplish. You also have the reverse clunk / vibration, TSB number 21-2284. That affected 2020 and 2021 GT500. So essentially what's happening is at reverse in low speed, you're getting a clunk vibration, and often a wrench light will appear on the dashboard. That just needs a simple reflash of the PCM. That's about a 1-hour job. Real simple while you wait thing you can do at the dealer. You also had the differential cooler fitting leak, TSB number 21-2330. That affected all the 2020 and 2021 GT500. It basically affected the 350s and the Mach 1s. Anything that had a rear differential cooler on it, it affected. So basically what they have to do is the lines are starting to leak a little bit, and they're replacing the fittings where they actually go into the axle. It's about a 1-hour job to replace the fittings, and they're also going to change the fluid in the rear end when they do that job. So another real easy, simple while you wait job. You also have the no crank, no start TSB. The number is 21-2390. That affected all the 2020 and 2021 GT500s. Essentially what happens is the PCM is losing communication with the car because of a low oil and a low oil life indication. And basically, in order to restore communication with the PCM, they have to do a reflash, and they're also doing an oil change on the car to address that issue. It's a 1-hour job, real simple, real easy. Next, you have the Sync 3 Various Glitch TSB. It's 21-2411. All 2021 and 2020 GT500s. This affects pretty much all Ford vehicles. There's a whole bunch of issues where it's glitching out. You're getting no response, blank screen, non-responsive. Basically, there's an issue with the actual sync system itself. Like I said, all Ford vehicles are affected by this. Less than an hour, simple reflash at your local dealer, simply dealt with. You have the loose seat / clunking from the seat TSB, number 22-2104. That affects all the Mustangs for 2020 to 2022, so all the GT500s. I believe that only affects the power seats. It didn't specifically say that in the TSB listed, but I'm thinking it's only a power seat issue. Basically, the seat kind of moves around a little bit, and Ford Solutionists are basically taking a rubber heater hose and they're clamping it around the seat cross tube with some clamps, and apparently somehow that fixes the issue. I don't really get it, but that's how they're addressing the TSB. So it's a 1-hour job, another real simple, easy fix. Up next, that affected all the S550 Mustangs. You have the A-pillar water leak TSB, 22-2242. Like I said, all the Mustangs, essentially, when they build the cars on the driver's side fender behind the door, there is basically a hole inside the metal from the manufacturing when they stamp the sheet metal. The factory, they put a little sticker over it, it gets painted over, and it's supposed to be fine. Well, some of them are starting to deform, they peel off, there's some issue, that sticker falls out, and basically water can get into the car, and you're going to notice water by your feet. If you have the car outside in the rain, you're driving in the rain, you might notice your feet start to get a little wet, and the mat's going to get a little bit wet. The basic fix to that is they're basically putting a rubber plug where that hole was. Real simple, 1-hour job, no big deal, simple while you wait fix. Up next, the harsh shift at speed TSB. TSB number 22-2280. This affected all the 2020 and 2021 GT500. So at highway speeds, you might get some sort of erratic shift, or possibly if you're starting off from a stop, you might get some sort of sluggish start, and or what the little wrench icon will come up on the dashboard. That's basically another PCM reflash, no big deal, less than an hour at the dealer, simple fix. All right, sort of a large one coming up. Not a big deal, but a bigger one. You have the loose exhaust / wire rub TSB. TSB number 22-2282. This affected all the GT500s from 2020, 2022, and it really affected all the Mustangs that have active valve exhaust on them. Essentially what the problem is, the exhaust system is not seated all the way forward, whether it wasn't installed correctly, it rattles loose and kind of works its way towards the back of the vehicle, and it essentially causes the wiring for the active valve exhaust to rub up against one of the body lines. There's basically a seam at the bottom where some of the body lines come together, and it causes that wire to chafe and rub up against that body line. And as it starts to wear into it, it eventually cuts into it enough where it causes a short circuit. Short circuit blows the fuse, game over. You get an alert on your dashboard where it basically says that the active valve exhaust is not available. So this one's a little bit more involved. They have to drop the exhaust system out, figure out exactly where it failed. They're going to most likely replace the wiring harnesses for that. That's not really a big deal, and possibly the exhaust system, but pretty unlikely the exhaust will end up getting replaced for that. So they'll just be pushing the exhaust forward for the most part and replacing that wiring harness. Shelby Flyer covered that in a detailed video, really great video where he showed exactly where it failed on his car. So not a big deal, but it's a few hours to do that job. So it's not just a simple reflash at the dealer like most of them are. You also have the parking brake fault TSB. TSB number 22-2362. This affected all the GT500s for 2020, 2022. So essentially what happens is you're getting some sort of brake fault will show up on your gauge cluster. Possibly the parking brake will stay on after you disengage. Even if you manually disengage it, it'll stay on. You could also get an ABS fault with this. One of the issues most likely with that is that there's an issue with the actual parking brake, the electric module itself. So they're going to be replacing the parking brake caliper, that little black caliper that's electric for the parking brake, and possibly the rotors to do that. So that's about a 1-hour job for that. So it's not a huge deal, but definitely let the dealer cover that because those are going to be some expensive parts. And finally, the last of the TSBs that actually just came out, the generator current sensor TSB. TSB number 22-2500. This affected only the 2022 GT500, and it affected cars built on or after July 22nd of 2022. Essentially what Ford did was they put the wrong current generator sensor on the cars. It's basically, there's a little round sensor that goes around one of the electrical connectors, one of the main connectors for the car itself. It basically senses the current going through it, and they put the wrong one on the car. It basically causes the car to have a rough idle, but it doesn't set off some sort of check engine or it doesn't throw a code. So you go to the dealer, they're going to replace that part. It's like a 20-minute job, so that's definitely an easy while you wait procedure, not a big deal. And finally, there is one SSM special service message that I want to cover that I've actually seen in person. It is the supercharger clutch failure SSM. SSM number 50578. This affected all the 2020 and 2021 GT500s. So basically you're going to experience a lack of power and possibly a check engine light, and it's going to throw code P1228. Essentially what is happening is these cars have a one-way clutch on the supercharger pulley. And that clutch could potentially fail, and basically it's not spinning the lobes of the supercharger and producing boost. So you basically have no power. So the way they're going to check that is they're going to take the belt off of the supercharger pulley and they're going to spin the supercharger pulley. If it spins freely both directions, the clutch has failed. So it should only spin freely in the one direction. So they're basically going to change the supercharger drive assembly. Now, because this is a SSM special service message, basically what that means is it hasn't happened enough to warrant a TSB, but they have seen it, and it's actually happened to a GT500 at my local dealer. So they're just putting this message out there, so if some of the techs at the local dealers find this, they can find this information online and say, hey, we haven't seen this a lot, we haven't officially issued a TSB, but here's what we're experiencing, here's the part number to replace it, and how to address it. So, this is obviously a really long list. I hope you stayed on for this whole thing because these are some important items. If I missed anything by chance, please add them to the comments below and I will pin them to the top of the comments for other people to see. And also, if more TSBs or recalls are issued after I put this video out, and today is May 7th of 2023, I will link them in the description below. I'll do a separate section of ones that have been added since I produced this video. I will make sure I add them in the description below with as much detail and links to them as possible. Here's the unfortunate thing about a lot of these TSBs, anything beyond a recall. There is no one-stop shop to find these things. Ford does not host any sort of website where you, as the general public, can go on and find these and go through them and see what affects you. You really only find these by searching them online if other people post them or the dealer is going to have them on their computer. So if you have a really good dealer that's willing to kind of search for all the issues for your car, great, but you can't go on any specific website and find one-stop shopping where it has every single one listed. Now, if you're not sure if your car is affected, reach out to your dealer. They can specifically put your VIN number into the computer from Ford, and they can see exactly whether or not your vehicle is affected by one of these recalls, TSBs or SSMs. So they can give you a definitive yes or no to do that. Also, you want to contact them because for some of these, parts have to be issued. The ones that involve reflashes, they don't have to order any parts. That's a pretty easy job. That's no big deal. But for some of these issues like the brake fault, TSB, the generator current sensor, TSB, the cam tensioner, a bunch of these other ones, they have to order parts. And parts are kind of still slow to come in sometimes for certain things. So definitely get ahead, call your dealer, let them know so they can get ahead and order the parts so you can schedule an appropriate time to bring your vehicle in to have these issues addressed. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope this helps you out. If you're having a problem with your GT500, you're looking for one. For the most part, this is a solid car. There's been no significant issues with this car, but like most complex machines, there are some issues that have to be addressed. And since Ford is covering these free of charge, make sure you have them cover them and go through my full list below. I'll make sure I link, if they're available online, the actual full description TSB from Ford, I will link in all of these numbers below so you can digest this, read the information yourself, and find out if your car is really affected by any of these issues. So I hope that you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.